Hey, folks, you looking for something simple and delicious to add to your wellness routine? Well, if you use any type of sweetener for just about anything, you can actually find something that tastes even better and is significantly better for you. I don't care if it's salad dressings or toast or tea or, I don't know, your protein shakes or breakfast. Manakora honey is rich, creamy, and the most delicious honey you've ever tasted in your entire life. It's ethically produced by Manakora's master beekeepers in the remote forests of New Zealand. Manakora honey contains powerful nutrients to support immunity and gut health. Gut health, incidentally, I've been reading a lot about, is I think they're finding out that, like, your stomach controls everything. But
yeah.
Nevertheless, bees collect the nectar from the Manuka tea tree in New Zealand, and the nectar is packed with bioactives. The honey that's produced has 3 times more antioxidants and prebiotics than your average honey, and a special antibacterial compound called MGO also comes from the nectar of this tea tree. I've seen some like skincare products that they actually put it in the skincare products.
Oh, it's great if you get cold sores on occasion. It helps kind of make sure that it doesn't spread too much and doesn't dry out. It's not painful. I mean, that's off-label, but I've used it for that.
All right, fair. Manakora third-party tests every single harvest for their MGO and makes these results available through their QR system. It's a game changer, and all you need is 1 heaped teaspoon each morning to get the most out of the amazing bioactives in Manuka. You can, of course, use it throughout the day, cut out your sugar and all that other stuff. That's going to help you. But it's a honey with superpowers. And now it's easier than ever to try Manakora honey. Head to manakora.com/majority. Get $25 off the starter kit, which comes with an MGO 850 plus Manuka honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, which are great to put in your kid's lunch or, you know, as a snack over the course of the day, a wooden spoon, and a guidebook. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. And now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the show today, it's election day. Go vote and then get ready for a night that may last for 2 weeks. Also on the program today, final polls show Harris with a small national lead, and Nevada guru John Ralston has Harris ahead by a hair in Nevada.
He's got a great track record.
Huge track record. Florida and Texas say they'll refuse DOJ monitors in polling places, despite the fact that a judge has told them to. Proud Boys, however, claim they'll be monitoring polls in Ohio. Republicans try and challenge ballots in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and the Georgia Supreme Court sides with the Republicans in limiting Georgia absentee ballots. Boeing machinists end their strike. The New York Times tech workers, however, still on strike, hoping the New York Times gets the point by losing their needle.
What will we do without the needle?
Nobody recognized what I did there?
No, I got it.
Meanwhile, National Labor Relations Board issues a complaint versus Grindr for penalizing workers for unionizing.
Oof.
And whoopsie, Trump's Western Pennsylvania field director turns out to have been a Nazi. And then, because that got revealed, the Trump campaign fired him.
Whoopsie.
He had done all the work anyways. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It is
Election day.
Tuesday.
Sure.
All right. I thought that's where you were going to go.
Well, I mean, is it Newsday Tuesday?
No, I thought you were going to say Election Day Tuesday.
Fair enough. It's Election Day.
We'll have some fun. I'll see you out the trail.
And if you're out the trail,
Last day out the trail.
You're going to be on one of those long lines in Georgia or North Carolina. Stay the course, folks. Stay the course. Or Arizona, for that matter. Apparently, the lines are quite long there.
I do appreciate all the poll workers in New York. I left a little bit early to vote ahead of work today, and I walked in and walked out and was here early.
Oh,
Same.
good.
Yeah.
So just to give you folks a sense of what today is going to look like in terms of our coverage, we're going to do a shortened show today, just the free half. And then later tonight, starting approximately 7:30, we're going to go live from the Bell House in Brooklyn, New York. I imagine over the course of the first hour or so, we will be people will be coming in. It's possible everybody's there at 7 p.m. The doors open. We're going to have about 350 of your fellow majority reporters in the house, and it's it's more of a it's like somewhere between a show and a watch party. As it were. We will have some guests, and we'll be doing analysis, and we will be telling you when we can expect calls to be made. We'll be streaming CNN and Fox and MSNBC, and of course WorldNet Daily. If are they still around?
I don't think so.
Or do they just refer to themselves as the Dominion Channel now? Was it them who got sued? I can't remember.
I don't know. There are always these new right-wing channels cropping up.
And then we will be going until approximately midnight. Maybe we'll go a little earlier. Maybe we'll go a little longer. I mentioned on the show yesterday that my mother has passed, and I'm going to head to Massachusetts tomorrow morning early for her funeral. Appreciate all the condolences. My sisters and I were able to spend her last day with her. So I feel very fortunate for that. So let's get into this. We will be streaming tonight on YouTube as well as Twitch. And on TikTok, probably live as well.
We won't be able to do TikTok without this extra setup here because of their OBS requirements, but everywhere else we should be.
And that is all a function of sunsetlakesabada.com. They have made it possible for us. There were changes at the venue. In the past, I think we recorded or we did it live. I can't remember, but we'll get into the antitrust situation. But the big conglomerate, what is it they called? Nation
Live Nation.
Live Nation now owns this venue, and but
rights.
Yeah. Well, it's just like they don't. You know how it works with these large companies come in, and all they care about is the bottom line. So they don't have the same staffing levels that they had before for this type of stuff. But be that as it may, it's still a great venue. But
It'll be a fun time.
Oh yeah.
And the people who work there are great. It's just not as many of them.
I'll need to not spill beer on the streaming computer.
That's right.
We'll rig it to figure that out.
And Francesca Fiorentini will be with us tonight. She's about 4,000 subscribers short of 100,000. Head over, subscribe to her channel.
The
That would be
Habituation
exciting.
Room.
Yep.
She was awesome on Piers Morgan yesterday. I saw a quick clip just to plug that. She was like, okay, we'll all condemn everybody here. Everybody sitting here will condemn whoever called Donald Trump Hitler. So will you join me in condemning Trump for saying that he wanted Hitler's generals? It was like a really fun sleight of hand. So that was a preview of, she did great. People should watch the whole appearance.
All right, let's get into this. It's yesterday was the final day of campaigning, although of course they continue getting on the trail today. And there is a sense now. Again, look, we will probably give our predictions at the end of the show today. Let's do it that way.
Sure.
But there is definitely an interesting dynamic where Donald Trump is not able, in the way that Dave Weigel said yesterday, to at least, make the case that he had all the enthusiasm. And, Joe Biden, we know, basically campaigned in the general from his house in 2020. Hillary Clinton was not necessarily driving the same level of enthusiasm as Donald Trump. Donald Trump was filling up stadiums. People are excited. He's the new flavor of the day. Here's a sense of like, you're closing out and you're going into a stadium that seats like what, like 12,000? Would you say this one? I don't know. I'm taking a guess. This is in Pittsburgh. This is the PG, I guess, arena. Is that what they call it?
PPG Paints Arena. It's a little under 20,000 capacity.
Okay, little under 20,000 capacity.
They got 5 there?
And here is now
This
not
is
only
before it started, so we could be fair. There's a video though below to show.
Okay, right. But did they ever get up to the upper deck? Because
no, the upper deck is completely closed.
Curtained
off. They say it, the reporter. Yeah,
and
that's where the majority of seats are. Just by how circles work.
Mr. Geometry over here. And so let's do we have the video after this?
It's just right down there in the thread.
There is a here it is. Now, what's interesting about this video is you're at the middle and they it gets a little sparse in the back there.
Anyone want to see the back?
So it goes,
This is mid-rally, though. So, that was as people were filtering in before it started. It doesn't seem like...
It's basically 3/4 of the bottom of half of it. Now, I can't do the math there. What's 3/4 of half? Like 1/3? So, I mean, and it's a 20,000 person stadium. Like, on the last day of the campaign in probably the key swing state of Pennsylvania, he draws 7,000. But at the least, these guys were so engaged. Let's check out this Good Liars video to get a sense of just how engaged people were.
Trump still speaking?
Yeah.
You guys leaving early? You guys leaving early?
Yeah.
Taking off? Hey, you guys leaving early?
Yeah.
All right. Leaving the rally early?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys leaving early?
Yeah.
You guys leaving early?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys taking off a little bit early?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys leaving?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you decide to leave early?
I've heard it before.
Heard it before? It's kind of boring. Yeah. Trump.
So good.
Gonna enjoy it now. Obviously, if Donald Trump wins, it's gonna be short-lived enjoyment. But if Donald Trump loses, we could play that every day for the next year and a half.
If he loses, it's going to be a really fun time. And no mercy for these Republicans who are already so confident. They're so confident in this campaign that hasn't decided to appeal to moderate voters or swing voters at all. Let's see how that works out for you.
Well, what strikes me is I'm sorry, that Good Liars video is from outside of North Carolina. And Libertarian Swifty says it's not that big, and for it to be mostly empty is crazy.
Well, that
was the Good Liars video as he's walking, as people are leaving. I mean, that's the vibe that is out there at this point. And the one thing that we heard over and over again about, that Joe Biden stole the election was like, how is it possible that Joe Biden won when he couldn't get anybody going to a rally? And the bottom line is like how many people are at a rally is really not an indication of much.
Especially in a global pandemic.
Yeah, and particularly in a global pandemic, when you have one party that, thought it was fake, and led to the death of probably anywhere from like 500,000 to 700,000 more deaths than would have had our government taken it seriously from the beginning. So it's not necessarily indicative of that, and nor is like absentee voting in that year, nor is crime rates for that matter. But nevertheless, the point is that there's a couple of different dynamics happening with this election. One is obviously who wins. The other is in what fashion. How big of a win is it? I don't know if Kamala Harris is going to win in Iowa, but if she does, it's a very, very different election than if she just ekes out in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. It will mean something different relative to, I think, like the chances that we could control Congress and Senate. I mean, I don't necessarily believe in a mandate, that like the idea of a mandate. You win, you win. If you win, you get a mandate. But the difference is it's going to really fundamentally change the way that the Republicans themselves in districts that, blood red districts are not going to change. The dynamics are not going to change. They're going to be just like they've been and head on that trajectory. But if the purple districts and like ones that are not even, Iowa's not really purple. I don't know what the color is. Maybe it's like more plum than purple. But if a place like Iowa swings to Kamala Harris, it's going to create there's going to be a real civil war in the Republican Party. If not, if she wins like Biden did, which again, remember, he won, 303 electoral votes, but it was really like 40,000 votes could have swung a different way in about four or five states. And
he won Arizona by like only around a little over 10,000, Georgia by under 12K. I mean, these were significant states for him.
And a couple of thousand votes relative to the, 130 million people that are going to expected to vote?
140 million people voted last time. Yeah, or 154 million voted last time.
So, you got a mandate if you win, as far as I'm concerned. But if it's the same type of margin or less than Biden, if Harris wins, I don't think the Republican Party in any way, they may have a hiccup and then they go forward. If they lose a place like Iowa, then you're going to really see a legit, what do you call it? A meltdown.
Yeah, I mean, look, like, in which, God, we pray for a meltdown. But like, this is, in 2022, they underestimated women and the backlash to Roe for the midterms. And my view is that this is still an underestimation of that rage. The story is going to be independent women, in my view, independent white women, but independent women more broadly, just because of the states that matter, that like Iowa, for example, that's a heavily white state, and there all indications are that in the South, that black voter turnout is exactly very similar to Biden, right? And there was a lot of tough talk from the Trump campaign that they were going to make all these gains with black voters, and it hasn't shown up thus far. But we'll see. We'll see. You know, I've felt more confident than what the national pollsters have said for quite a while, but I don't want to count my chickens before they roost.
James Darwin on the IM says, Sam, remember how in 2012 the Monday morning quarterbacking from the Republicans was that they will have a come to Jesus moment? Needed to moderate the message about the border. Didn't happen. It lasted for about 2 months. Yeah. I remember Sean Hannity in particular saying, like, oh my gosh, we really have to really rethink about the way that we are treating immigrants. And now, of course, it went the opposite way. And in fact, they ended up, in my estimation, dragging the Democrats to the right on that, at least in the context of this campaign. Under the Biden administration, in many respects, I think did that. We'll see where it goes if the Democrats win. If the Republicans win, if Donald Trump wins, and takes the Senate, which is more than likely to happen if he wins, it's very possible they may take the Senate even if Harris wins. It's going to be a disaster, I think, in ways that we can't really fully comprehend. If you look at how many former Trump officials, cabinet members, are coming out against him now, and I don't care about these people beyond the fact that, I don't care. But it's indicative of like the normie Republicans who are horrible in and of themselves are not going to be staffing this administration. They have already figured out who they need to bring in. Trump already knows what he can get away with or where the new lines are drawn. In terms of the courts, forget about it for
decades,
another generation or two. And in terms of agencies, like, the Bureau of Land Management has not recovered at all from when the Trump administration basically blew it up in Washington, forced people to go out. A long time, a lot of institutional, a lot of civil servants quit, and repopulating that agency with people who care about these things, as opposed to how can we deliver this federal lands into the hands of corporations, it takes a long time
to build back up. It's very easy to break. How about the CFPB? Trump appointed a payday lender to the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. How about the Environmental Protection Agency? Trump appointed the guy, Scott Pruitt, that kept suing the EPA to make sure that your water would be less safe, your air would be more polluted for corporate interests. Donald Trump surpassed Obama's drone strike total in one term, I think many times over in the Middle East. He brought us to the brink of war with Iran by assassinating Qasem Soleimani. He's talked about injecting bleach in a global pandemic. He cut taxes for the wealthy, a majority of which went to the top 1%.
We should say when that in 2027, it's going to be, or 2026, those tax cuts sunset for everybody except for essentially people making over hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
The number of insured people dropped under the Trump administration because of the way that they messed with Obamacare. Gosh, what else? I mean, there's just so much that we need to remember of how awful and how that time was and how easy it is for him to break things. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, I think people understand that.
All right, let's. We've got a call. Calling from a 726 number. John from San Antonio.
Good afternoon, Sam and Emma.
John, good to hear from you. Now, I've heard that there is a rumor going around that you may be involved in the show tonight. So we don't want to let too much air out of the tires. But let's get a quick overview from you, if we could, in terms of, what folks can anticipate today.
Yeah, Sam, first I want to offer you and your extended family my deepest condolences for the loss of your mother.
Thank you, John.
All right, quick overview, okay. Let's see. Well, I guess I'll just start by saying that, most elections, let's see, let me just find a quick starting point. So I'll say I'll acknowledge that forecasting elections is not an exact science, and I could be wrong with my predictions, though most of the time presidential elections are very predictable, except for the 2016 presidential election and the 2004 presidential elections were the two closest consecutive elections in the Electoral College, and no other elections were even close. Both of those elections were predicted to be close, and they were. Now we have another election that is predicted to be extremely close by a vast majority of pollsters and aggregators who have good track records and take elections very seriously. The only relatively recent, fairly close elections were in 2020, 2016, 1976, 1968, 1960, and 1948. Every other presidential election has been have been blowouts in the Electoral College. Right now, the three closest consecutive elections are the 2004 and 2008 elections. If the winner of today's election wins with 311 electoral votes or less, the 2016, 2020, and 2024 elections will be the three closest elections in the history of the country. All of the picks in the 7 swing states are toss-ups and could go either way. I've gone back and forth on many of these picks, and I've never felt as little confidence in my picks as I feel today. Have Harris winning with 270.
Whoa, wait a second. Really? That's scary.
Well, I'm just trying to be honest here.
No, I appreciate the honesty, John.
Yeah, I mean, it's been so close. I mean, like, but like Georgia and Nevada were the two closest states that I really had a hard time picking. But let's see. So out of the 7 swing states, I have Harris winning Pennsylvania by 1.2, Wisconsin by 1.7, Michigan by 1.4. Could be necessary for Harris to win Nebraska's 2nd district to get to 270 electoral votes. I think she'll win by 10 points there. Have Trump winning by 0.1 in Georgia, 0.6 in Nevada, 0.4 in Arizona, and 1 point in North Carolina. Unfortunately, I have Republican Bernie Moreno beating Democrat Sherrod Brown by 0.8 in Ohio. I think Colin Allred will surprise some people.
Wait, you have Moreno beating Sherrod Brown?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's had some real bad polls. He's had a very bad October, Sherrod Brown. Also, in the last couple of weeks of September weren't so great for me either. Yeah, I also have let's see, where am I? Colin Allred, I think, will surprise some people and only lose by 1 point. Tester and Osborne in Nebraska will lose by 3. Mercosal Powell will lose by 4. Republicans have gained on Democrats in swing state Senate races, but they all should pull through with the smallest margin of victory coming in Pennsylvania, which I think will only win by 2 points. Silver repeated the 1916 House race where 218 congressmen caucus with the Democrats and 217 caucus with the Republicans. Tipping point races are the 22nd and 13th District of California, the 19th District of New York, and if the Republicans win, it'll be the Washington's 3rd District. Other important races, the Democrats could flip, or Oregon's 5th district, Pennsylvania's 10th district, New York's 17th district.
All right, hold on. Slow down for a second. Okay, say again. The congressional districts?
Okay, you want me to just start? I mean, I could
just
also
give us the list that we can that we should be watching. You know what? Let's save that in the event that we may see you tonight. Who knows?
All right. I mean,
what would you say the odds are of us seeing you tonight? Do you have a percentage on that?
Go with 100%.
Oh, this sounds like foreign money going into mess up the markets,
How can you be
like
so
poly
sure?
markets.
Yeah, right.
That's weird.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll go 99.9.
All right. Well, that's what like Clinton was to win in 2016. So it's basically anybody's guess.
Exactly right.
Right. Sam Wong. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Remember that interview?
I do remember that interview too. Actually, it's one of the 10,000 interviews I've probably done in the past 20 years.
Whoopsie.
That's the one that I have absolutely remembered.
All right. Well, John, can you just give us your take on the Seltzer poll? You think it's an outlier, or do you think it's an indication of something like I've been hinting at?
Yeah, I remember. If you remember last week, I actually referenced Seltzer. Yeah, I mean, it made me open my eyes up a little bit, and I think the margins will be closer. But yeah, I don't think Harris is going to win Iowa. I mean, it's just
but I mean, if she comes in, well, I mean, the problem with that is like, is it just a function of that 6-week abortion ban? Is that why? I mean, if she comes within even like a couple of points, that's crazy.
Like Trump they released the internal that they say they have him at +5 in Iowa. That's still an awful result for him.
Yeah. I mean, things have definitely moved towards Harris. I mean, like last week when I called in, 5 out of 7 aggregators had Trump winning. Right now, only one of those 7 aggregators has Trump winning. I mean, so it's been a complete shift.
What do you think accounts for that?
I just think the polling in general. I mean, some of the later polls that came out.
No, but I'm saying I understand why the aggregation would move. But what do you think accounts for the change in polls, or is it really just like there hasn't been a change, a dramatic change in the cohort of polls that are most important, or are doing it, because if let's say this, I'm putting out a fake, I don't want to say fake, but if I'm putting out a poll that, a Republican poll that is sort of manipulated to enhance Republican numbers, and I'm flooding the zone with these things to impact the aggregate, I'm not going to do that in the last week of the election because so many people have already voted. My dollar for dollar, the real value for me to do that is a month out, essentially, or 3 weeks out, have it come out as people are really starting to do the absentee or the early voting, right? And so is it that there's been a shift amongst all the polls, or has it been that the later polls we start to it's almost like we have winnowed out some of the more junky polls?
Well, I don't think it's winnowed out. I think that the people who actually have objective polls, are more prone to do the polls closer to the election day.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
A month ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, a majority of them were Republican bias polls and some Democratic bias polls, but now it's like a majority of them are objective polls. And so, I think the objective polls have been better. I think that, a lot of the things that you talk about on the show, the craziness of Trump, as people start paying more attention, low propensity voters who don't just pay
late
attention
deciders, John, are it appears that the Times poll, again, nonpartisan poll, right? that does wait for Republicans, but they don't do the herding. They have her up with double digits with late deciders, and the campaign is advertising those same numbers.
Yeah. I mean, I think that she's finishing really strongly, but I mean, but at the same time, I mean, even the top forecasters are not giving huge margins. I mean, it's like, 1 point, 2 points. Top polls rather, not forecasters, but okay. I mean, it's 1 or 2 points, and those aren't huge leads. And then, of course, I mean, I know you think that there's going to be a polling era in the other direction, that Harris will take advantage of a polling era. But I mean, a lot of people think that, it's going to be a repeat of the last 2 presidential elections where Trump is going to get the advantage from the
John.
So, I mean,
John, I'm going to ask you the bottom line, and that is who's going to win the presidency, who's going to take control of Congress, both the House and the Senate. And I want you to answer in the, hoping that the 0.01% chance that we do not hear from you or see you tonight happens. I want you to answer later. That is what is known as a tease in the business, John. And so you know the question, and I want to hear the answer later tonight.
Okay, all right. Probably find it on my Twitter account too.
No, John, that is not the way the business works. But I appreciate it.
That was supposed to be a tease.
Well, I got to make my picks.
Yeah,
I know, but
right.
we need to monetize your picks.
All right. Well, fair enough. I understand. It's called scooping us, but whatever.
Yeah, well, you're used to that with the whole letter hack thing, huh?
John, really appreciate and we'll see what the odds are for you to that we see you tonight. Appreciate the call.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Looking forward to it. All right. Bye.
If it happens, we just don't know. It's the statistically speaking, it's hard to know. Folks, the show is sponsored by a Liquid IV. Every day, you see, I'm like, today's literally the only day I don't have the bottle next to me. I forgot it. But you will see me drinking some of that tonight, without a doubt. Whether you forget to take a sip of water during the office holiday party or, I don't know, start feeling parched after a long day of traveling or hosting a show, let's say.
Or if you're working out.
Keep Liquid IV on hand to stay hydrated through the holidays and certainly through the election season, which very well could be for another 2 weeks. They got convenient packs of their hydration multiplier or sugar-free hydration multiplier. You get 8 vitamins and nutrients, 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks, and no artificial sweeteners. I mean, there's been probably, I would say this is the second, maybe the third day in the past 4 or 5 years of doing the show where I did not have a big bottle next to me. I'm already getting parched. I'm so used to it. And I drink that bottle of Liquid IV. Sometimes I have 2 during the show. And it really, actually, I think is very, not just helpful me during the show, but I think that makes a difference. Like, I'm very not sensitive I'm completely out of touch with, my physical being. Mm-hmm. But I've started to realize, like, when I drink 2 bottles a day, I'm like, just generally feel better.
It's also great if you're sick.
It's also great, yes.
If you're dehydrated when sick.
Liquid IV has all true-to-fruit flavors that keep you hydrated. You can find hydration multiplier flavors on their website, from acai berry and lemon lime to pina colada, which is one of my weaknesses. But now I'm hitting their sugar-free flavors, raspberry melon, white peach, and green grape hard, particularly the white peach and raspberry melon. Your mileage may vary. Tear, pour, live more. 1 stick of 16 ounce of water hydrates better than water alone. Liquid IV is powered by LIV Hydroscience. It's an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink Liquid IV is always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. Stay hydrated through the holidays with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com. Use the code MajorityRep at checkout. It's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MajorityRep at liquidiv.com. Also, I used this when I took my recent trip down to West Virginia.
Ah.
Yes. I was, listen, who knows what's going on out there when you share somebody else's Wi-Fi or public Wi-Fi. You got to be careful. When you go online without ExpressVPN, it's like leaving your laptop unattended at the coffee shop while you run to the bathroom. Most of the time, you're probably fine. But you don't want to come out of that bathroom and find that your laptop has been stolen, which is also why I bring my backpack into the bathroom at Tim Pool's place. I'd like to thank ExpressVPN for supporting the Majority Report. And here's the deal. Visit expressvpn.com/majority. You can get an extra 3 months free. Why? Every time you connect on an unencrypted network, cafes, hotels, airports, wherever it is, your online data is not secure. Any hacker on the same network can gain access and steal your personal data. That means passwords, bank logins, credit cards, whatever. Doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack somebody. Just some cheap hardware is needed. A smart 12-year-old could do it. And your data is valuable to people, not just because they're going to use it themselves. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling the personal info on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops hackers from stealing your data by creating a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN is super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. It's also super easy to use. You fire up the app on your phone, your computer, your tablet, click one button, you get protected. Like I say, ExpressVPN works on all devices, all of those, plus your smart TVs. It's rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. It's super easy to use. That's the bottom line. It's great to have that extra security. It's like an insurance policy. And because it's so easy to use, it's sort of like the cost of entry is that much easier. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/majority. That's expressvpn.com/majority. And you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/majority. We'll put links to that on the YouTube and podcast descriptions. John from T-Berg says, who knows what happens when you use someone's fancy non-working toilet? That is true. Reminder, next week, we will go through the Tim Pool stuff. I will be doing the show tonight and then probably not on the show for the rest of the week. Perhaps I might be able to jump on Friday briefly, but we'll be sitting Shiva, which is Jewish custom in the, after someone passes away. Before we get into our predictions, there's, and I think, there's going to be, if Kamala Harris wins, whether she wins big or not, I think we have a good notion of who, the constituents are that are going to make this possible, right? I mean, any Democratic win is a function of a wide array of Americans. The fact is that there is one political party that is identitarian, and that is the Republican Party. Is it 86%? 90%? I don't know what the latest is. White party. And, but if Kamala Harris wins, it's going to be because more women voted for her than Donald Trump in a fashion that exceeds how many men vote for Donald Trump over Harris.
The last NPR Marist poll had the gap with men closed really rapidly. Like it was up to 16 points I'm seeing in some of the polling. NBC Marist, which has been, I think, a pollster that's been a little bit more correct than others, had it at just 4 at this point. I mean, it's not like the story of the election will be the gender gap, but I think there will be late deciders who also see the racism, the chaos. They're reminded of this kind of thing that will break for Harris in a way that, like, the major kind of commentators on this aren't taking into account.
And we should say, when we say there's a gender gap, what we're going to see is that I think men have more or less stayed where they are, which is slightly favoring the Republican Party. But women will have, if Harris wins, will have overwhelmingly supported Harris. But we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge the work that one individual did through a series of events in helping Kamala Harris win if she wins. And credit where credit is due. He has the biggest, maybe not just online platform, but perhaps the biggest platform in the country. And
thank you for saving democracy.
And if Kamala Harris wins, I want you to bookmark this video, save it, send it to your friends. Let's start in August of 2024. Joe Rogan, who has endorsed Donald Trump, but clearly this is to a CYA thing, because Joe Rogan decided sometime over the summer that he was going to go behind enemy lines and sabotage the Trump campaign. And I've had my differences with Joe Rogan in the past, but I think this guy probably deserves a medal. Here is Joe Rogan in August of 2024. I don't know who he's talking to. It doesn't matter.
Comedian.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. This is all, it's fascinating to watch this.
Adam Ray, who
Adam
I've
Ray.
never heard of.
Another
Okay,
truth
well.
teller.
Trump is looking at, like, to make a little put down, or he's just quick in that way.
Listen,
So
he is quick in that way. Also, it would behoove him to hire a few great comics to just tour with him and just write one-liners about all these different fucking people.
I mean,
if he could remember them, I mean, I know he likes to go off his own head, but
Sure.
if he could remember a few Hinchcliffe bangers, if he hires Hinchcliffe to take him on the road.
Oh, pause it. Wait a second. Hinchcliffe. Where do I recognize that name? Oh, Hinchcliffe.
The Madison Square Garden.
Oh, right. Tony Hinchcliffe. Oh, so in August, Joe Rogan is suggesting to the Trump campaign. Now, it's not like, Rogan has a direct line to the Trump campaign, right? Like, that would mean that he would have had to, had Jared Kushner in the green room at the Mothership, his comedy club. Oh, wait a second. Anyways, continue.
Bangers, if he hires Hinchcliffe to take him on the road. Do you know how fucking insane that would be?
Yeah, dude.
Hinchcliffe writing bangers for Trump to shit on people.
Comedy cures, and it also is, like, sometimes what kind of just pushes things over the top.
Pause it. That is, I think,
great way
very
to put it.
Astute
Yes.
and in many respects very foresighted, because comedy does turn that. Now, of course, we know at least part of the story since then. Tony Hinchcliffe goes to the Madison Square Garden, really the premier final rally of the country. I mean, we heard about this for a long time, this Madison Square Garden, because the last time there was an America First rally in New York at Madison Square Garden
85 years ago.
Was 85 years ago. And in that one, they went full on. They wore the Nazi uniforms. They were Nazis. They were American Nazis. You can Google this. What was the first America First rally? And then you saw the second one, and Hinchcliffe, did the blacks eat watermelons joke, and the Jews are cheap joke, and the Palestinians throw rocks joke, and the Latinos, just keep creating baby stuff. Real throwback. Comedy that you could have probably found back in the 40s, and the 50s, maybe the 60s. But it was a real sort of reminiscent. And then, of course, He also called Puerto Rico a garbage island. And there is a lot of reason to believe that that will seriously impact Donald Trump in the swing states. And here's Joe Rogan, and kudos to this guy. Again, the work that Joe Rogan did here, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I don't know if I have even remotely close to the impact he does. And then he's smart about it. He sort of hides his tracks a little bit.
Rickles was almost like he was in this category of ultra famous comedian.
Oh,
right?
pause it for a second. What Rogan is referencing is that Hinchcliffe and others, after Hinchcliffe had this big thing, they were trying to say this was just like Don Rickles appearing at Ronald Reagan's second inaugural ball, where Don Rickles, 50 years ago, was a comedian who, or I should say, this would have been 40 years ago, was a comedian whose whole thing was roasting people from a stage in the 50s and 60s. And by the time the mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s came around, people were like, dude, this doesn't work anymore. Even though he was very judicious as who he would spread it around. And at that inaugural ball, he made a joke about a young black child who, was set up there and said, be funny, which was pretty funny, actually. And then Rickles said, there's one kid who won't be playing basketball. And then every other joke was at the expense of the Bushes, the Reagans, the Schultzes, and this and that. He spread it around. But again, that was 40 years ago. If you went back, let's say 70 years, you would see a lot of really inappropriate comedy that existed and so on. But they're using this as some type of excuse. And here's Rogan saying, that doesn't cut it. Again, kudos to Rogan for what he's doing here.
This category of ultra famous comedian, right? He was in this Dave Chappelle type category where just seeing Don Rickles, all of a sudden it was a comedy show. Like, oh my God, Don Rickles is here. Tony Hinchcliffe does not have that, right? If Dave Chappelle went up and did 10 minutes in front of Donald Trump or 10 minutes in front of Kamala Harris, that's a different thing. Because it's like he's a cultural icon and you immediately go into stand-up comedy mode. Like, oh shit, Chappelle's here, right? That's what Don Rickles had with Reagan. Tony doesn't have that. It's a bad thing to do. The whole thing's bad. It's like doing a bachelor party. Like when you have to do comedy at bachelor parties, it's like they want whores and cocaine. Why is this guy telling jokes? But it's just a bad environment. It's a bad environment for comedy. And, that joke, I would have told him,
pause it for 1 second. See, this is what I think is brilliant about what Rogan did. Because back in August, he said it would be great to have him tour around with Trump and feed him bangers.
Yeah.
And do this stuff.
Trump treats his campaigns like they are stand-up shows. He's literally like a road comic up there. It's not a bad environment. Hinchcliffe is a bad comedian.
Well, Hinchcliffe sold out the Madison Square Garden. This is what is brilliant about what Rogan did here. Because I think on some level he realizes like he has to come out and endorse Trump because that's his brand. Of course, he did it so late that it probably is not going to have the impact that he hoped it did.
After saying he wouldn't, by the way.
It was reported in the New York Times, but how many Rogan listeners read the New York Times, right? That was the interesting thing about that. But go back a little bit, because watch what he does here. Again, kudos to Rogan.
Like when you have to do comedy at bachelor parties, it's like they want whores and cocaine. Why is this guy telling jokes? But it's just a bad environment. It's a bad environment for comedy. And, that joke, I would have told him, don't you fucking dare do that joke. I never, sat down with him. I didn't know what bits he was going to do, but then I heard he did that
pause
joke.
it. So if you didn't know what bits he was going to do, you did know he was going to do it. Interesting. Okay. Why wouldn't he know? Right?
How would the bits matter if it was a bad environment for comedy?
Yeah.
Right. Wouldn't you say, hey, man, don't do comedy there?
It's a trap.
It's a trap. Unless, of course, maybe...
Comrade Rogan.
You said it. Go ahead.
I would have told him, don't you fucking dare do that joke. I never, sat down with him. I didn't know what bits he was going to do, but then I heard he did that joke. I was like, oh Jesus, Tony. Here it comes.
I think there are comedians probably who. I think Tony is the wrong type of comedian for that environment. If you had someone come in
100%.
who wasn't a roast comedian, who actually made
100%.
everyone feel good and like
You know
was
who
just clean.
who could do it and just talk about cultural
Now,
issues?
pause it
and
for a
get
second
everybody
before we
to
get
laugh?
into
Jimmy
this.
Dore.
Now, the interesting thing is that somebody obviously did vet these jokes. Now, if Joe Rogan is savvy enough to know, supposedly, that I would have told him never to do that joke.
Well, which singular joke is he talking about?
Well, all of those jokes.
Well, we all know.
Right.
But,
All of
that's
those
the
were
problem
Puerto
is
Rico
everyone
one.
knows what the joke is.
But there's the watermelon joke. There's
the
like
Jew joke, the Palestinian
Yeah.
joke, the Latino joke, or the Puerto Rican joke. But the point is that Joe Rogan claims, like, I would never tell him to do those jokes in that context. But yet, the people whose job it was to vet every word said on that stage, to oversee the input of every word said on that stage into the teleprompters, said, this is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
This is what our people want.
Because they
know.
took out a joke that he had prepared where he called Kamala the C word.
Yep.
They censored the C word joke.
All right, but let's just, here's Joe Rogan basically throwing Tony Hinchcliffe under the bus and promoting a different comedian.
Yeah, and between
now, I know a lot of people would say, you should edit out the name of this person because
well, he would do it to us.
But go ahead.
Wasn't a roast comedian who actually made everyone feel good and like
you
was
know
just
who
clean.
could do
and-
it? Who could do it and just talk about cultural issues and get everybody to laugh is Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is really good at that. He could do something like that because he's so knowledgeable when it comes to politics. He could bridge the gaps between humor and fact and reality and what we're up against.
Yes.
He could do that.
Let me try
It's
and
not
do this.
Tony's
Because
wheelhouse.
One thing is, you can't vote for Kamala. Everybody's got to be wearing a mask, a diaper on their face.
Yeah, the Fauci
face
ouchie.
diaper, and then they're going to be, we're going to have no shots and get rid of the fluoridation. And that's the way it's going to go.
Why didn't Jimmy get Tulsi's there. She's writing all these tweets for Trump
That's what I'm
about
saying.
Hindu nationalism, which was odd that he's been tweeting this in like the past few days. Why doesn't Jimmy have a direct line to Tulsi? Or is that just, does he play that up because he just wants more yoga videos to consume?
I think he's kind of upset with Tulsi, wasn't he, for endorsing Joe? I don't know. Maybe they've patched things up. It's a problem.
Yeah, perhaps.
But again, want to just reiterate, if Harris wins big, maybe Rogan didn't make the total difference, but he certainly helped. But if she even wins by a sliver, particularly in some of these swing states, I mean,
Is there a person more responsible in the country?
hard to know.
Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and Charlie Kirk.
Exactly.
Kamala and AOC last night were at the Old San Juan Cafe in Reading, Pennsylvania. I think that was the right city. Just to...
Do you think they would have done that had not Joe Rogan suggested to the campaign, both on his wildly influential show, but also probably through the back channels and his personal relationships with members of the Trump family, to have Hinchcliffe work with Trump? And I mean, do you think that they would have been campaigning in specifically trying to target Puerto Ricans living in Pennsylvania had Joe Rogan not done that?
I don't think so.
Or if Tony Hinchcliffe hadn't been on Joe Rogan Experience, like, I don't know, a half dozen or more times.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Thanks for saving comedy, Joe.
Exactly.
And maybe, just maybe, America. All right, folks, we need to have some time to prep for tonight.
Did you want to do our predictions?
And before we go,
Yeah.
we're going to do our predictions. Who wants to go first? Let's let Emma go first because she's so jonesing to do this.
I mean,
you're
look,
like created in a lab to do this.
to predict elections. I mean, So I get it. It's a little bit of the gambling thing, or I like to win. I'm competitive, right? So this is where it shows itself.
An irresistible internet lure.
Isn't that one of the guys that Tim Pool said was one of the reasons like all these
one of the guy
liberals
who's left the left.
moving to the Republican Party? I just, this entire time, I have been very skeptical for months at this point about claims that Trump is ahead or that this race is close. And if Kamala Harris ends up winning big, a lot of the narrative is going to be, wow, that Madison Square Garden rally really did them in. Wow, Donald Trump closed poorly. He's been closing awfully. And there's a lot of truth to that, right? That helped her campaign. But there is also truth to the fact that this is the first election.
Shifty shift. That's what I call him. Shifty shift. And you've seen his neck.
He also doesn't have the juice, right? Yeah. I mean, there's that. But this is the first election post-Roe, presidential election post-Roe. And the first presidential election after January 6th. And those are two things that really motivate independent voters. And I think that's been underestimated the entire time for pollsters that bake in a shy Trump vote that I don't believe exists anymore. These pollsters took the lesson from the pandemic that, oh, it was just like 2016. We thought Biden would win by bigger margins because there's always going to be this quiet Trump support. I think that was more a function of the pandemic. And I think that's what they're going to get wrong. But really, at the end of the day, is like, it's not just that Trump closed poorly. It's that women are pissed. And there are going to be a lot of, in my view, older women that see the rights of their daughters and granddaughters slipping away, that are Republican women and independent women. That will be the deciding factor in this election. So I posted my map on Sunday, I think. I think she sweeps all swing states. It's all 7. And I also think she wins Iowa. I'm not I truly think that this is going to be much more like Obama 08 than 2016 or Obama. You know, the dynamics are closer to an Obama 2012 race because she's basically a new figurehead at the top of like a campaign that was set up to run for an incumbent. So there's that infrastructural point. But I almost I get panicked saying that because I want that to be the outcome, obviously, but it's also just honestly what I think. And I think my gut's been kind of right for this cycle. So I'm just going with it. And I think she sweeps all 7 swing states.
Senate?
I think that Tester holds on. And I'm so, like the Osborne race, it's so hard for me to gauge. So I'm just going to say maybe Osborne loses by a hair, even though if I were to pick, I want Osborne to win really badly. And then it's a 50-50 Senate. I think the Democrats take back the House fairly easily and have around a 12-seat advantage.
Anybody else want to go next? I mean,
I'm not predicting.
I have been saying.
Also, I think Sherrod Brown wins. I totally disagree with John on that.
Oh boy. Well, I am more. I've been thinking for a while, it's either going to be like Emma says or a thin Trump victory. I don't think Harris wins by a small margin. I think if she wins, she actually gets more electoral votes than Biden did. But I am even more convinced that the Democrats will hold on to the Senate.
That MSU Billings poll from last week had Tester tied, and Tester is like Teflon a little bit. And there's abortion on the ballot in Montana, which nobody seems to even report on. Like a lot of folks that I think are, who still think Kamala's going to win have Trump winning Arizona. And I think like that's a fair prediction for sure. But abortion's on the ballot in Arizona. And there's a lot of resentment there about January 6th / the fake electors scheme, where Republican lawmakers were targeted. And there's just like retirees there that maybe Republicans that are like, this is not.
The only thing to push back on the Arizona thing is a lot of people over the past 4 years have left California, and the people who have left California were, mad about COVID, and a lot of them moved to Arizona.
Yeah.
And so, there's a sort of like Arizona is sort of like the Florida of the West. It seems like it's turning into, which is, the people who have been migrating there are sort of the more conservative types, and not necessarily even elderly like you have in Florida. But I think Ted Cruz is going to lose. And that is just like a gut feeling, like
that's a risky one.
But I will say this. I have a lot less confidence in my prediction than Emma does. Because I still, again, the interview I remember as vividly as any was the Princeton professor who was here, I think the day before the election, saying Hillary Clinton 95%. So I have no idea. But
Hillary did not have enthusiasm on her side.
Oh, no. I can come up with 100 reasons why this is different.
Yep.
But also, and again, the theory that we had about Harris before she became the nominee was Republicans are going to have a tough time running against her because they're going to waste a month or two trying not to be racist. We predicted that, I think, pretty well. And my theory has always been, Harris has, stayed away from the idea of like, I'm breaking the glass ceiling. I'm going to be the first woman, never mind first black woman. I think Americans, a certain cohort of Americans, have an easier time acting on their misogyny than they do on their practice of white supremacy. And in some weird way, I think that dynamic it's counterintuitive, but may have blunted some of the misogyny in that people are afraid to feel like they are racist, particularly in an environment where Donald Trump's racism is so overt and grotesque and obvious.
And to your point, people voted for Trump in 2016 for a variety of reasons, right? But people even voters who are racist, not even a majority or whatever, like have racist views. They don't want to feel like they're racist, right? And that explains some of the Obama to Trump flips where, the circumstances are different from election to election. But like Donald Trump has made no effort to counter the claims that he's a massive bigot. In fact, they've only amplified in the final weeks of the election. So people don't want to think of themselves as voting for a racist, and you have to give them some semblance of plausible deniability.
Well, exactly.
And he hasn't done that.
I mean, that's the Southern strategy, right? I mean, that's when was it Lee Atwood on his
Atwater.
and Lee Atwater on his in his waning days was like, we used to say the N-word, but now we could say busing or taxation. The whole thing is, and Donald Trump made you like embrace it. He did not give you an alibi.
Yep.
And in some ways, I think like Harris, being black hurt some people's alibis. And so, we'll see. We will see tonight.
She's also not been in Washington for 40 million years. Like, I think she comes off as more of a human being than Hillary Clinton did, for example, where she's just like was paralyzed by being in Washington and being the subject.
There was a whole cottage industry around her.
And I think it changed her to make her a worse politician, and also her politics got worse over that time period. Like, this is more refreshing. Walz, obviously, when he talks about burning political capital, you get in power and then you burn. You're not hoarding your capital, you burn it. That's also what gives me hope about what would happen if they do win.
Well,
and we'll see. But what's your prediction for the map then, besides the Senate race? Do you think Osborne and Tester win too?
Yes.
Wow.
I think. Well, let me put it this way. I think either Osborne. I mean, the Texas is maybe the bridge too far, as it were. But I think it's very possible that Tester holds on and Osborne wins. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I don't feel too strongly, but I will also say that I think, and we'll talk more about this tonight. But in the event that Harris wins, understand, and this is what I appreciated, frankly, about that John Oliver video. That is just that just gives us an opportunity.
It's the beginning.
We haven't won anything. It just means that the game essentially continues.
100%.
And so understand that. If Trump wins, we have lost, and we will continue to lose. And we have no opportunity to win. It is really just about mitigating losses. If Harris wins the election, it is not, it's in my mind, a victory as much as an opportunity to have smaller victories over time and hopefully, get closer to a goal that may or may not be attainable, as a static situation. I mean, I think this is really just sort of an ongoing fight, but we will, talk more about that.
You have to give your map prediction.
My what?
Your map prediction.
Oh, I think.
What swing states do you think she wins and loses?
I think she wins the 6 swing states. Arizona, no. But that, I believe, takes her into more
Past
electoral.
300.
Yes, and like 306, right, as opposed to like 303. I'm not sure.
Because Biden lost North Carolina, which has a few more electoral.
I think
votes.
she wins North Carolina.
Yeah.
And not necessarily Arizona.
Or one fewer. Sorry, Arizona has 11 electoral votes. North Carolina has 15. So I think that maybe would put her at 207. 307.
Right. So I think, but who knows? What is that, Matt? Are you listening to that?
I'm listening back to the first ad we did the day after Trump won.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, my God.
I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, let's listen to it.
Okay, pull it up there, brother. This is, I'm not sure even what product this is for.
Oh, my gosh. You look so depressed.
Yeah.
I also look younger, though, don't I?
Well, you were younger.
It was 8 years ago. Oh, my God. I can't believe we're looking at this. Jesus, is that backdrop that old? Forward, so let's take some calls. Should I do... This seems like gallows humor now. But Periscope Data can't even... we got an ad. I don't know. Are people really interested in running routine SQL tasks? Now more than ever.
Now more than ever.
Folks, we're going to do this. Periscope Data is the ultimate tool for fast and flexible data visualization. Why run slow queries on an old spreadsheet data when Periscope Data allows you to run, visualize, and share analysis over billions of data rows in seconds? Okay. Let's not do a free ad.
There's a part where you said it easily reversible there, and we're like, wouldn't it be nice if things were easily reversible?
I don't even know what that was, like the one ad. I remember that now because it was one of the, I said to him, I said, I don't know what this is. I can't give an endorsement. I don't even know what it is. Does anyone even know what that is? I don't know what that is. I remember when we got this ad from whatever it was, like Midroll or whoever that company was. And I'm like, I got to be honest with you. I can't give a personal endorsement for this because A, we don't use it, but B, I don't know what this is.
Look, I get the hesitation that people have about hedging, saying, "Oh, she won't actually win Iowa," right? But I'm gonna bet on Ann Seltzer. That's gonna be my, the only really major female pollster who also has correctly polled independent women.
All right, folks. We will see you in 6 hours or so.
I'm so tempted to over-caffeinate, but my heart's already just like pounding. So.
Probably
Emma?
water's a good choice.
Yeah, maybe.
Matt, Bradley, I'm not going to say good job. We will, because we got a lot more to do, but good start of the day. We'll see you tonight.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. Into years, while I shifted in and out of gear, waiting for my moment to happen. I don't know how much longer I can stay in, or how much more I got to pay to play in. I know somehow